Camaro is dusty. It's been sitting here for quite a while, but we're going to work on it today. So the plan for today is we have shocks for all four corners. We have lubrication for the rear differential, and I have to fix a valve cover leak. So as I've been driving it around, if you take a turn sharp enough, the tires kind of rub on the fenders. But it's only when you're turning hard. It's not necessarily when you turn slow. So I'm thinking, the shocks probably need a good going through. They're at least 20 plus years old, so the Camaro doesn't really bounce too much when you push down on it. So that's not too bad, but for the price, it wasn't that hard to do. The other thing is when you drive it, you can kind of hear the howl of the rear end. Hopefully, new lube will fix it, but we'll see. So this car is completely cold. I haven't touched anything on it. Let me roll the window down. Alright, I want to show you guys how awesome this thing starts up. There you go. It's idling. I need to bump the idle up a little bit, probably play around with the mixture just a tad, but it starts right up, doesn't smoke, doesn't knock, doesn't tick, and we should be able to drive it right now. Alright, into the shop we go. I need to figure out that carb return spring. It's still a little heavy. Put a lighter one on it and see how it goes. I decided we'd start in the back. So the rear shocks are pretty simple. You have one bolt here, and then up underneath here you have two, and it just comes right off. The thing that I'm kind of surprised about is there's this. This looks like something that somebody put on here in order to compress it. I don't know if looks like electrical wire, so I don't think it's like from the package when they installed these shocks, but we'll get them off and we'll compare them to the new ones, make sure we have the right stuff, and then we'll put them on. Hopefully it won't be too hard of a job. Alright, let's see how bad this shock really is. Oop, if I can pull it with my hand like that, you know it's no good. Alright. Wow, the new ones are yellow. Perfect. Alright, so maybe the back ones weren't too bad. I've seen a lot worse, but I don't believe I should be able to just push it down with my hands like that. But maybe. Guess we'll see what the other one looks like when we put it in. But they're yellow. Isn't that crazy? With the rear shocks installed on both sides, there's the other one. Matching yellow. I'm not even about matching suspension parts to the car, but we know what can you do. It's time to drain this differential and put new stuff in it. So I'll show you guys what I have. I have this Felpro differential gasket, and then I have 2 bottles of 80 weight 90 gear oil to go in here. But the first thing we have to do before we bother taking everything apart is we have to find the fill, which is right in here. You guys can't see it, but you need to make sure that comes out first, right there, before you take all the rear end lube out, because if for some reason that's stuck and you drain everything, you're kind of out of luck. I have all the bolts off. It's already starting to leak, except for the top one. And a couple of things, you have to unclip the brake line from this little peg in order to be able to move it up, because it also bolts here. It also bolts there, and when you reinstall the cover, you have to remember this little notch right here. I mean, you can't really put it on wrong, but maybe you could try. Also, you have to have the orientation right here the same for the ring gear that's behind here. So now let's see. Yum. That's nasty. And we're gonna let it sit here and drain for a while. Also pull this cover off, see what it looks like underneath. I need to get rags before this makes a mess. So here's the diff with the cover off, and it looks pretty good. I mean, what you're looking for is broken teeth, chunks of metal, all that kind of stuff. I didn't really see anything like that. But we're gonna put new fluid in it, and hopefully it runs a little bit better. This is pretty thin. It might be original, I mean, who really knows, but we'll get it all cleaned up and pretty looking and refill it. Then we can move on to the front shocks. Some people have asked me, why do I have tape all over this, I guess it's a door guard. So when I got the car, it was hanging down right around here, and had been like that for so many years that it kind of wasn't in shape. So what I'm going to do today are two things. One, I got some epoxy that I'm going to glue this back on with, because that's all these were ever really held on with, was little tabs and epoxy. And I also have emblems that I'm going to put on this Camaro, and it's going to be awesome. But first, this paint, as you can see, it will buff out. The bottom is obviously going to be better than the top. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to buff this panel right here, get it all done just like I was going to do the rest of the car, so that I'm able to put on the emblems. So the goal for this paint is a good 10-footer. You can see it, I mean, it shined up pretty decently. I mean, it's got scratches and stuff in it you're never going to get out. So, but here are these emblems I bought, and you know what? Looking at these things, they're almost too nice for this car. But you got one that goes right here. You got the other that goes right here. Those look pretty good. Oh, almost kind of seemed like an afterthought when it comes to where they should put emblems on this car, but you'd think the front of the fender would be better, but it is what it is. So we'll put these on. We'll also attach that, and one step closer, and then I can move on to the front shocks, because I've been putting those off because I got these in the mail and I was really excited about them. So, alright, moving on to the front shock. So I have a couple of tips for you guys on how to remove these shocks. See-through Corvettes are very, very similar. So the bottom of the shock is basically just two nuts, or two bolts, that go up into the control arm. And I would recommend getting those off first. As you can see on mine, this is a factory one, and this is aftermarket. So somebody stripped or lost the original bolt and put in this one. And an easy way to get to the nut on the other end, if you have that problem, is you put the wrench in like this and you hold it. That way you can hit it with the impact. So I got those out, and the reason why I did that is because this upper nut right here is frozen in place, and what happens, you spin it with the ratchet and the whole body of the shock spins. So there's a shaft inside of it that spins. So in order to remedy that, what we're going to do is we're going to take a pair of vice grips and we're going to run them up through here, clamp onto the shaft of the shock. And what that should do is should hold it so we can then get the top bolt out, and pretty much everything should fall right out. Alright, I have the old shock out, and check this out. It's a big D shock from AC Delco. Now, I don't know if this is factory, but obviously AC Delco parts were used when the car was put together. The main rubbing I feel like I was having was in the front, and looking at these shocks, obviously it's compressed and it's not going back up. If you look at this one, if I compress it, you can see it slowly returns. That one's totally shot. Whether it's factory, I don't know. But it needs replaced regardless. So we'll put the new one in, and we'll call that a win. Alright, in the past you guys have seen me put on different valve covers. I swapped them for something else. These are all aluminum Heartbeat of America valve covers. So they're kind of period actually. They're what I had that was already aluminum and fit. The steel ones, they like to warp and leak. So I had an issue over here on this side with the valve cover gasket wasn't sealing well because I couldn't get to that last nut or that last bolt right there because of the VIR delete that they put in there. It's a dryer now, but I fixed the leak. It doesn't leak from the cover, but I think I leaked so much oil onto the exhaust that it's still smoking just a little bit. I hope that it'll stop smoking. It's already died down quite a bit. I also had to mess around with the return spring on the carburetor again because it kept idling high. So now, hopefully I got this stuff figured out, we can drive it around. Alright, so I hear way less rear end noise, so I know that did some good. The throttle, I really think I'm just going to have to get used to a heavier spring. I think that's the issue that I'm going to have. Right now it's working just fine, but it did stick up in the beginning of the drive that I didn't record because my camera wasn't working. But got some bumps right here. See how these shocks do. Pretty good. Not too bad. So when we'll get home, we'll see how that if the oil's done burning off the engine, and we should be good. Alright, we made it back home. I bumped up the idle just a little bit, it was a little low. The valve cover fix looks like it worked out. I don't see almost any smoke coming out anymore. What I'm wondering though is about the transmission. I'm getting kind of a whine as I drive it. I know it's not the rear end because that sounds a little bit different. It's more like a hydraulic whine. I'm not sure about the power steering. Remember, the power steering, all I ever did was just fill it up. I haven't actually worked on it yet. But I'm going to check the transmission level, see what that's at, and then go from there. But it shifts just fine. It doesn't delay or anything like that. So we'll see how it goes. I want to show you guys my emblems. Totally cool. They were missing when I got the car. There's another one for the front. You can see I've kind of already buffed the paint where the emblems go. But I need to do the whole rest of the car, that's for sure. But that is going to have to wait for now. I also need to move on to the interior, but again, we're just going to have to see what all the stuff in here looks like.